Welcome to St. John, New Brunswick, the greatest little city in the East, as one of our previous mayors used to say. Situated on the Bay of Fundy, which has some of the highest tides in the world, and on the St. John River, which runs about 425 miles upstream. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Aquilla to our tour this afternoon. It's a 3-hour St. John Highlights tour, and we'll be making 4 stops today. 2 of them will be at the Reversing Falls, where you'll have a chance to see the Reversing Falls, or the Reversing Rapids as we call it now, in different phases, hopefully. And we'll also go to Martello Tower and to the St. John City Market, where you'll have an opportunity to perhaps do a little shopping, if you care to, see a little bit more of the history of St. John, where the roof of the market looks like an upside-down ship, which is a testament to the shipbuilding history of the city of St. John. So, we'd like to let you know that we are very concerned about your safety, so we'd ask that you please remain seated at all times while the bus is moving, and also be cautious getting on and off the bus. The steps are quite steep, and around town sometimes you'll find some of the streets are a little uneven, so just mind your steps as you travel around through the market and around the city. Now I'd like to tell you a little bit about the history of St. John. We have a very, very ancient history, actually, that goes back many thousands of years, when our First Nations used to use this area, the harbor and the river, as a way to get around. There was a portage up over the hill to get to the river because of the Reversing Rapids, or Reversing Falls, as we always used to call it. And they used this as the waterways as their roadways. Now, in 1604, the St. John River was first discovered by Samuel de Champlain, happened to discover it on June 20th, which was Saint Jean Baptiste Day. So thus he named the river the St. John River. Prior to that, the natives had called it Woolastook, which means beautiful river. So eventually, there was trading going on here. In the early 1700s, there were trading posts set up. The natives traded furs with the British or the French, whoever happened to come by. A few trading posts set up and down the coast. And it was quite a business going on. But on 1776, things sort of went south, you might say, because the Declaration of Independence was signed, and the British all of a sudden became at war with the colonies of they called themselves the Patriots. Those who remained loyal to the King, George, at that time were called Loyalists. So after 1776, the War of Independence raged on in the United States. Well, by 1783, the Patriots had prevailed, and the Loyalists found themselves without a home because they had remained loyal to the King of England. So they became refugees, and some of them moved to Ontario, some of them moved to Nova Scotia, and on May 18th, 1873, 3,000 Loyalists arrived here in St. John, New Brunswick. And guess what they found? They found this. Yes, they found woods. There had been a few houses for people who ran the trading posts during the time, but it was mainly wild woods. And that was very devastating to them because they had been used to the genteel life of the colonies. And it was very difficult for them to give up, but they prevailed here. They took the woods, they developed a shipbuilding industry, they developed a forestry industry, and they built the city of St. John. Well, in the early 1800s, there was a devastating famine in Ireland, and it resulted of a lot of refugees coming to the Americas. Some went to New York. Ellis Island processed a lot of those. Some went to Boston, some went to Quebec, and many came here to St. John, New Brunswick. We have out in the harbor a Partridge Island, which is a testament to the many Irish who came here during the Irish potato famine. It was used as a quarantine station to make sure people did not enter the city and bring disease with them. So they were kept there until they were considered to be safe to come to the city. And they moved to town here. So between the years 1845 and 1847, 30,000 refugees were processed through Partridge Island. And at that time, the city of St. John was not that large. It was about 20,000, so they swelled the city to about 50,000 people, which was a huge boom. It caused a large building boom in the city of St. John. Being a country of many trees, of course, St. John was built of wood at that time because it was a big building boom and they had to get many houses up very quickly. They threw up wood frame houses. They used shingles for the roofs, wood shingles on the roofs. So it grew very quickly, but that was not always to the benefit of the city, because on June 20th, 1877, a fire started. About 2:30 in the afternoon, that fire began. They said from an ember from a chimney of some factory, landed in a hay barn on a little place called York Point, and quickly spread throughout the whole of the southern peninsula. Now the merchants, seeing what was happening, took all their wealth and they ran to the Bank of New Brunswick, which is down on Prince William Street, and it was a brick building at that time, and put their wealth into the vault. Well, unfortunately, the Bank of New Brunswick also burned down that time. Fortunately for the merchants, the vault remained intact, so they did have their wealth, which made it possible for the city to rebuild again. So the city father said from that time onward there would be no more wood buildings, because what had happened was the embers from one fire would catch and be blown. There was a huge wind that day, and embers would be blown onto the wood shingle roofs, and that just spread the fire that much more quickly. And as I said, 9 hours later, there were 13,000 people were homeless. 20 people had died. Ships that were moored at Market Square, many were burned. The ones that they could not get towed out into the harbor burned at the dock to the water line. So it was a very devastating fire for the city of St. John. So from then on, there would only be brick buildings with slate roofs or something that was not flammable. And so they rebuilt. Excuse me. So the city rebuilt in stone and brick. And this is what you see today, are the beautiful buildings that were built afterwards. Many with large Corinthian columns. And when they rebuilt, for the safety of the people, if you look high up, you will see little white crosses under certain windows. This was where the people in the buildings were supposed to muster in order to be rescued should there ever be another fire. Well, there were several fires on and off, but none of them ever as devastating as the Great St. John Fire. Oh. It's okay. So, anyway, St. John rebuilt. And here. Well, I hope you've enjoyed your tour today. On behalf of Aquilla, I would like to thank you for coming and sharing this time with us. I'd like to thank our driver, Julie, who got us safely around town. On behalf of me, I'm grateful you joined us also. If you have any feedback, feel free to check the Aquilla website, or you can report to the ship's site if you like. And we hope that someday you will come back and join us again.